Welcome back to Cossy Arsenal Podcast. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to brand new video. This is your latest Arsenal news, injury update, and Premier League nominees as well. We're going to be diving into the latest around the club. Bukayo Saka, we have a major injury update on Saka. According to Gary Southgate, Arsenal have not communicated through any official sources or to any major bodies that Saka is actually injured. He's being assessed at the moment, according to Gary Southgate, but he's been called up for England. Of course, it puts us in a massive dilemma. Do we play him against Man City if he's available? And that means that England can also play him against Australia and Italy. Or do we actually announce him as injured and give him that rest period from Sunday until the Chelsea game? We're going to be diving into that as well. We're talking about Mikel Arteta has been nominated for the manager of the month in September, and he actually did very well. A win against Man United, a win against Everton, a win against Bournemouth, and a draw against Tottenham Hotspur. I thought we really did very well in the last month. So Mikel Arteta has been nominated in the manager of the month by the Premier League. And also we'll talk about Gabriel Martinelli. There is a possibility that Martinelli comes back over the weekend, and how important Martinelli's coming back becomes when Saka is not available. Hit the like button for me, subscribe to the podcast as well. This one is coming a little bit late, but I'm sorry about that. Was a little bit caught up, but we can actually dive into the news. Now, let's get this video to 300 likes. I want your thoughts on this one. Saka is injured. We know he's injured, right? And we know he's carrying a longer term injury as compared to these shorter ones that he's been actually picking up. So what do? Do we play him against Man City and allow Gary Southgate and England to actually play him against Australia and and Italy because he's been called up? Or do we actually announce him injured and give him that extra 3 weeks not playing, and 3 weeks of some rest, and the medical team looking at him and assessing him to see whether he's actually going to be all right for the rest of the season? I want your thoughts there. Do we rest him against Man City and pronounce him injured, or do we play him against Man City and just risk it that England will play him against Australia and also will play him against Italy during the international break as well? But let's start off with the first big update. It comes from Sammy Makbo, who says that the injury the player sustained is not deemed to be as serious as initially Mikel Arteta had feared, and the medical team at Arsenal had feared as well. So the injury might not be serious, but Sammy Makbo from the Daily Mail, he says that there is a possibility that he doesn't play against Man City. However, that doesn't make the injury very, very serious, and I think it's more of a lack of information from the side that is causing such kind of reporting. He says, one, that it's not a serious injury, but then he also says that he will miss the Manchester City game. For me, if it's not serious, if the injury is not as serious as we had feared, if the injury is not as big as Mikel Arteta had initially been told, then probably he plays against Manchester City. And I still think, look, now I'm convinced that we might see Saka against Man City. I'm convinced that he might be available against Man City. And, the way this thing operates and the way the relationship between Saka and Mikel Arteta operates is that when the player is fit to go, when the player really is okay to play, Mikel Arteta will always give him the chance. It's what we know. Mikel doesn't really he relies on the doctors, he relies on the data. I don't want to stupidly say that he doesn't rely on the data and the doctors, but he also massively relies on Bukayo Saka. When Saka says, I'm okay to go, I can play, I think I'm alright, Mikel will play him, right? So Sammy Makbo has a point that the player might not actually be feeling okay to go against Man City, but the injury is not one that we can actually fear for 6 months, 4 weeks, not at all. So if we don't have him against Man City, it's a sure deal. We will actually have him after the international break, right? We will have him after the international break. He will play against Chelsea. And that is where the dilemma is. But before we get into the dilemma, he has also been called up for England, right? So we know we have the international break after this weekend for a couple of 2 weeks, right? It's going to be 2 weeks. And during that international break, England have 2 fixtures. One against Australia or to be honest, I don't think England have to play him against Australia. I don't think England have to play him in that game. Okay, so one against Australia and one against Italy. And I think the one against Italy is an important one. The one against Italy is gonna be a crucial one. So they will want to have him, and they will actually have to have his impact if he actually is available. So Gareth Southgate calling him up, that is a massive one. That's a major boost, right? Because you can't call up a player who is in a dysfunctional state. You can't call up a player who actually is not promising. So I think they've asked for information, England. And Southgate is one of the people I know. He watches games. He's in contact with players. He's in contact with the medical staffs. He's in contact with the teams. And he understands what is on ground. So the fact that Southgate has actually called up Bukayo Saka, that's a positive one. We could see him over the weekend. It means that he's available, right? He means that he's available, but probably not to the levels that we want him to be, not to the fitness levels that we expect him to be at. So when asked about the possibility of him playing, Southgate said, for us, what I'm doing here is I'm selecting players that are actually that are actually available. And a couple of assessments are going to be done on Bukayo Saka with Arsenal. I do not have any information that is out. I don't have any information that is actually dysfunctional. And that is where the positive is. However, guys, the negative, right? The negative is I'm probably not. It's not a negative. It's more of a loyalty point. What does Mikel Arteta do? If you're Mikel Arteta and you're Arsenal, what do we do and what should we do? Do we rest Saka and announce that he's injured and just don't allow England to play him? Because we might actually want to play him against Man City. We might win the game if we play him. We might actually have we will have a greater impact on the pitch if Saka is there. But then you've got to think about the bigger picture. The bigger picture is Saka has a couple of knocks. Saka's picked up a couple of knocks and is carrying a long-term injury. That much we know. So if you're Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, this is what I think we should do. Don't play Saka over Man City. Don't play Saka against Man City. So we should communicate with England amicably that the player will be available and could have been available. But however, he's carrying a long-term injury, and therefore he needs to be rotated. He needs some game time. He needs some time to be rotated. And of course, Southgate has options. There is Raheem Sterling, who's actually doing very well. There is Eze. He's got options, right? So I don't think England are short of options without Bukayo Saka. So that's what I would do. That is what I would suggest for us to to solve the dilemma. Do not play him against City. And send a clear message to England that we would love for Saka to stay with Arsenal and carry on, the tests and carry on with his, recovery process. And then after that, they can actually play him because eventually he's their player. He's English. He's always happy to represent England. He's always happy to play for the national team. I don't think, Arsenal have anything negative when it comes to Saka playing for England. So that's what I would say. That's what I would do because Saka is important. Saka is massively, hugely important, right? So I would sacrifice the Man City game. I know we won't have the same attacking thrust and attack without Saka, but I would rotate Saka. I would just leave him out of the side. If we can get that communication with England that they will also not take him, then it's a win-win situation for the player and for Arsenal as well, right? But then you also have to consider this. If we do not rotate him, England will not rotate him for us. Okay, so I don't think Southgate is sitting there saying, well, he's important for Arsenal, so therefore I've got to rotate him. I don't think he's actually thinking about that. He's going, if Arsenal don't play him against City, that means that he's got that weekend off, and then he's got another 7 days before England play Australia. That means I can play him, right? And again, it comes back to Mikel Arteta, it comes back to Arsenal, and how important Saka is to the club. I think no one is going to rotate Saka. Southgate, England are not going to rotate Saka on our behalf. We've got to rotate him on our behalf. And how do you do that? you've got to make tough calls. You've got to make very, very tough calls. And for me, the Man City one is going to be a tough call. I know how important he is. I know how dangerous the game is without him. But we've got to make the tough call. And the tough call is, in simple reality, you've got to drop him and you've got to trust the data. The data is, Saka not 100% fit to play in this game. And that's what the data says. And if you do otherwise and he picks up a longer term injury, that is on Mikel Arteta. Now, I've been watching the boys on AFTV, Robbie and Robbie on the Invisibles podcast. And they were saying that it is also partially on Mikel Arteta, the lack of rotation that we are, suffering this big dilemma of Saka. And I kind of agree to some extent. I think Saka shouldn't have played a long time in the weekend game over Bournemouth, and therefore, coming into the Lens game, it could have been fitter and it could have been better as well. But playing your best players is not a crime for a manager. It has never been a crime for Pep Guardiola to play Erling Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne. It has never been a crime for Erik ten Hag to play Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford. It has never been a crime for Arsene Wenger to play Sanchez and Ozil, because those are your best players. That is how you get results. Those are your best players, and those are the players that are reliable. Those are the players that can actually be, trusted. So I don't think it's really a lot on Mikel. It's about the shadowing, it's about the games, it's about the natural occurrences of injuries rather than on Mikel Arteta. That's what I would say, at this point in time. Okay, so Saka to play, Saka not to play. Comment box open up. Let's see what you people are saying there right in the comment box below. Now, there is a possibility that Saka might not play in that game, but Gabriel Martinelli could actually play in that game. Now, we do not have, and I do not have an update on Gabriel Martinelli coming back to training and those things like that. And maybe tomorrow and Saturday, those are going to be very crucial days to the coming back and return of Gabriel Martinelli. But this is what I would say. Gabriel Martinelli's return is important now. It's more like it's more than a luxury. It's more than a boost. It's crucial. It's very, very crucial. If Saka is not in the team and Gabriel Martinelli is not in the team, there is something we are losing. One, we are losing two of our best important players in attack, but then we are losing experience. These two boys have played together in the last Premier League season, and they were very consistent. And none of them actually picked up an injury. We saw a dip in form in Gabriel Martinelli's game. We saw a dip in form in Bukayo Saka's game, and that was it. The rest of the season, they were consistent, they were good, and they have accumulated that kind of experience. They've accumulated that kind of that heavy data on players. I think Gabriel Martinelli knows better on how to take on Kyle Walker and Manuel Akanji, and I think Saka knows better on how to take on Nathan Ake and potentially Ruben Diaz. So when you don't have those two experienced players, I'm not saying experienced that they've played like 10 seasons, but with this young side, every game accounts to your credit in the bank in terms of experience, right? And the experienced bank at Arsenal is not that rich. It's not that it's not that huge. So what you've got to do, you've got to play your best players. You've got to play players that have got that experience with every opponent. And that's Gabriel Martinelli. So if Martinelli comes back, he gives us that kind of explosiveness, that kind of courage and courageous outburst, and also an outlet, because Saka is an outlet, right? So if you don't have Gabriel Martinelli, you don't have Saka, that's a disaster. That's a recipe for disaster. You could say that Arsenal are on the precipice of an absolute crisis without Saka and Gabriel Martinelli. So we need one of them. We need both of them to be exact, but we need one of them at worst. And Gabriel Martinelli maybe coming back, it could mean more than we imagined, right? I love Trossard. I think Trossard is great, but I think Gabriel Martinelli, wide areas, much better than Leandro Trossard. And I think we might reach a point in the season where we see Leandro Trossard playing middle of the park where Kai is, and we see Gabriel Martinelli left, Saka right, Odegaard also middle of the parker as well. So that is where we are with the injuries, and that's where we are when it comes to the blame game. Who is to blame, right? Who's to blame? Is it Mikel Arteta? Is it the natural conditions? I would definitely say the hypocrites of Qatar, the hypocrites of FIFA, trying to, place World Cups where they don't belong. you've got to blame those guys. You've got to blame those lumpens, haven't we? So let's talk about some of the nominations and some of the awards that are happening for the September month of football. At Arsenal, 4 players have been nominated for Player of the Month in September. That is Declan Rice, William Saliba, Bukayo Saka, and Martin Odegaard. Now, Rice scored the winner against Manchester United in that 3-1 thriller at the Emirates Stadium. Beautiful scenes. William Saliba has been really consistently solid for Arsenal. Apart from this Lens game, which was not even in September, he's been solid. He's been very, very consistent and very solid. So I really agree with the selection of William Saliba. Bukayo Saka, this guy's producing numbers in a season where we presumably have him starting slow. Where he's presumably starting slow, he's having very, very good numbers. So you think about Saka, an assist for Rice against Manchester United. That is something we really don't talk about enough, but he did have that assist and an assist for the winner. Now he assisted the only goal we had against Everton, and that was Leandro Trossard as well. He scored against Tottenham Hotspur and assisted the own goal against was it Romero, right? I was forgetting. It was Romero. Again, he assisted in that game and scored, right? Those are direct goal contributions in 3 games. And against Bournemouth, the guy turns up, right? He really, really did turn up in that game. So with Saka, Player of the Month, I would choose Saka because he's involved himself in every single game and he's almost involved himself in every important goal Arsenal have scored in the month of September. Martin Odegaard, what should we say, scored against Manchester United. The goal was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Against Tottenham Hotspur, he disappeared. He really disappeared. And then he had a very good game against Bournemouth, a goal and 2 assists, right? And then against Manchester United, of course, we've talked about that. Against Everton, I think he was lively, right? He was lively because he makes the pass before the goal, right? So again, he's been lively this month. He's been very, very good this past month, Martin Odegaard. My problem with Ode is I'm kind of seeing inconsistent runs. I'm kind of seeing him, drop off in some some areas of his game. But especially in terms of consistency, right? But I hope he will be much better. So Player of the Month, I'm going to go with Bukayo Saka for me last month. But let me know who was our best player last month. Mikel Arteta has been nominated for Manager of the Month last month with 3 wins against Bournemouth, United, Everton, and 1 draw against Tottenham Hotspur. The rest of the company he's got on this award is Ange Postecoglou, Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham Hotspur won against Liverpool. They drew against Arsenal at home. I think Ange really deserves it. Ange really deserves it, to be honest. Spurs have been really, really very good. This September. Eddie Howe as well. They annihilated Sheffield United 8-0. That was a super power performance. And then Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool have been really consistent. Apart from that loss against Tottenham Hotspur, was it even in September? Let's see. Was it even in September? I don't think it was September. I think it was early. Early October. Liverpool have been very consistent, beating Aston Villa convincingly, beating Newcastle with a red card, convincingly. They're just a side that just can't stop winning. They score goals. They are very, very coordinated. And, they're threatening, really. They are actually very, very threatening. So, but I still go with Ange Postecoglou for Manager of the Month. We've also had, Trossard's goal against Everton being nominated for Goal of the Month. And I think he should win it. That was a very good goal. Really, really good goal. David Raya's save against Tottenham Hotspur, I think it was against Brennan Johnson, has been nominated for Save of the Month. So you know what to do. You can go to the Premier League website, you can vote, and you can also go on the Arsenal website and vote for your Player of the Month. Hit the like button for me. Subscribe to the podcast as well, and I'll be speaking to you right in the next one. See you in a bit.